I'm joined now by two experts on how law enforcement approaches these kinds of investigations. Former FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole, the Forensic Science Program Director at George Mason University, and Jim Jones, the Digital Forensics Program Director, also at George Mason. Good morning to you both. Mary Ellen, I want to start with you. You just heard Aaron's report there. You just heard what happened on Friday with a suspicious person was pulled over. That turned out to be nothing. I know you also worked on the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping. Her father is joining us soon. But when you look at this case and where we are and the growing frustration, do you feel there were any missteps?
One of the issues in the case that is concerning, and I don't want to call it a misstep because it does happen in other cases, is the crime scene itself. The crime scene was released, and then they came in again, then it was released again. And the problem with that is that you can compromise forensic evidence. Forensic evidence can be very fragile to begin with. And so when you open and then close a crime scene like that, it can be compromised.
So there could be footprints or something like that?
There could be footprints, there could be evidence that was there originally, and then somebody else touched it, so now it's compromised. So that could be problematic once they get to court and they have to present it, but it could also delay identifying somebody.
And from what they have already recovered, they found these gloves. They may or may not be connected in any way, although you can't imagine there are too many gloves in that warm climate. So what do you think is going on now, and what will they have with that?
Well, with the gloves, they're looking for, obviously, for forensics, specifically the DNA. And that's something that is obtainable with those gloves. So they're going back and they're looking for more forensics, with DNA being the gold standard.
But would the person have to be in a database, a DNA database?
Not necessarily. CODIS is our database, and that's the one that all the states contribute to. And if you're arrested, your DNA is in the database. However, there are other methods, and that one of them can be forensic genetic genealogy. Unfortunately, that takes a while to be able to use that.
Okay, Jim, and specifically that doorbell video cam. She didn't have a description. Google managed to find that anyway. It took them a while. It's an intense process. How do they do that?
And what happens with the cameras is they record the imagery no matter what, and assuming the camera is activated, which this one was, the data, the imagery goes up to the Google Cloud. Whether you have a subscription or not, that's irrelevant. The subscription determines how long the data is kept. And so in this case, the data was uploaded to the cloud. She didn't have a subscription. It was put in the queue to be deleted. And it was somewhere during that deletion process that they were able to recover the data. So deleting a file doesn't actually get rid of the data, just marks it for overwriting later. They were able to go to those servers, to that storage, and find the remnant pieces of the video.
And what we saw of him pulling down the camera or trying to cover up that camera, did it make any difference that the camera was pulled down? There's nothing in the camera itself, is there?
That's accurate. Likely did not have any impact on it. The camera itself stores a very small amount of video if it's actively connected to Wi-Fi. If it loses Wi-Fi, it'll hold up to maybe an hour worth of clips, but it won't transmit them until it gets Wi-Fi back. So taking the camera off, it probably was still trying to record at that time, and then later couldn't upload, and so the data never made it to Google.
And Mary Ellen, the backpack, they also have identified where this backpack was sold. You heard Aaron there at Walmart, $11. How big is that database to find how many people have purchased that? I assume they're going online, they're going store to store.
It's huge. And that will take a while because there's so many stores in Arizona. He didn't have to buy it in Arizona. Could have bought it somewhere else. So that's going to take a while. But the beauty of the fact that he could have gotten it at Walmart is they have a tremendous amount of cameras inside their stores. So once they narrow that down to possibly one store, maybe in the area, then they can go back and they can look at the cameras and they can actually see the day that the person
On that day,
bought
that
it.
video would be preserved. And Jim, I want to ask you about the timeline. So we see this guy go to the door. Do we have any idea whether that was right before he may have pounded on the door? We've seen that there was no, I believe, no forced entry as far as we know. So is it likely that he went back to the car, took off the mask, tried to knock on the door? I know you're speculating there, but in terms of that timeline, what we know and what we don't know.
Yeah, the best public information shows that the camera was disconnected around 1:45-ish a.m. Around 2:30, her pacemaker stopped connecting to the Apple Watch. So that's probably when she physically left the premises. So there's about a 45-minute window from the camera stops recording to she leaves the premises. We don't know if he entered immediately or if he entered 5 minutes before she left.
And Marilyn, I just want to close with you. How frustrated should people be at this point, or is this normal?
Unfortunately, this is normal. These cases are not easy to resolve, even with technology. And what they're depending on now, in part, large part, is for somebody to come forward and say, that's my husband, that's my brother, that's my next door neighbor.
And it doesn't appear anybody's done that yet, so
Not
we'll
yet.
hope. Thanks to both of you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.